Okay, welcome. So last week I did a video about leaders and why I don't personally feel that boarding school creates good leaders. So today I wanted to create a video about, well, what does create and make a good leader? And I'm going to draw upon a few different books. One is Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last, and also Warren Bennis's Becoming a Leader. So enjoy. Yeah, so I think last week I did a video about leaders and boarding schools, and I draw upon the work of Nick Duffell, also Cousins and Posner's The Leadership Challenge. And really the idea I was trying to get across is that often the feeling is you've been to one of the top public schools or you've been to a boarding school, this immediately makes you a good leader. And what Nick Duffell is saying in his research and what I found is that it doesn't make you a good leader. But that does not mean that you cannot become a good leader. Actually, if you put the training in and if you do the inner work, then you can become a great leader. And I really see that. So that's what I want to share a little bit today. I mean, if I'm just reading a little bit from Simon Sinek's book, he says, leaders are the ones who run headfirst into the unknown. They rush towards the danger. They put their own interests aside to protect us or to pull us into the future. Leaders would sooner sacrifice what is theirs to save what is ours, and they would never sacrifice what is ours to save what is theirs. And this is a great model. So it's all about leaders eat last. It's all about service. It's all about giving. It's all about serving the greater good. It's serving those people that, are in your kingdom, are, that you are leading. And I see, looking at what we learnt at, these public schools, is it's the opposite. It's all about us. What can I get, or the people from my class. So I think that's one of the first shifts we have to make to flip from being a poor leader into a great leader is service. What is needed and what is the price that I need to pay in order to get there? And Warren Bennis's work, he says, the first thing, basic ingredient of leadership is a guiding vision. You've got to have a vision. Jordan Peterson talks about this. He says a good leader has a vision, and he knows that some will follow and some won't. It's like my vision is to close early boarding schools, pre-16. It is to bring in mandatory reporting. It is to create good leaders. It is also to bring it in trauma-informed teaching in schools. This is my vision. A lot of people are not interested in my vision, but there will be some who are inspired and go, great, I want to follow that. So that's the first aspect of leadership. If you're at home, your family, your company, your relationship, it needs a vision. It needs a destination of where you are going, because then people can either join you or not. But most of us are like, well, I'm not sure what I want. This is key for us, is to get clear, and often if it can come back to, well, what's needed? And if you see that no one else is doing it, that's a sure sign that, right, I need to step up and do something. So that's the first thing, is leadership. Second thing is passion. And this links into Angela Duckworth's work around grit. And she talks about, that grit is intense perseverance and intense passion. You're really passionate about something. I've talked about this quite a lot. Robert Bly, in his book, he says that often our wound is where our greatest gift will be to give to society. Rumi talked about this. He says the wound is where the light enters. So I often find the greatest passion is where our wound is, if we have healed it. I spoke to Simon Partridge on my podcast, I think it was episode 16, and he said the same thing, is once we move through our trauma, then we can then help others. It's like on my trauma healing model, the third aspect of it. So it's that passion. What are you passionate about? If it is your wound, God, I was abused, or I was hurt, or I was depressed, or I was alcoholic. That's often the place we're most passionate about because it's lived experience. And people, when they hear your story, they go, oh, I can resonate. I trust that person. So that's the second thing, is passion. Third thing, basic ingredient in leadership, is integrity. And this really comes down to this idea of you do what you say you will do. If I say I will put a video up every Wednesday, I do it. If I say that, right, we're going to go shopping, I do it. That helps to engender trust. And most books on leadership that I've read, a few dozen, they all say the same thing. Trust is one of the key components of leadership, great leadership. People have to trust us. And how do we garner trust? Do what you say you will do. So that's the third aspect. Then the next ingredients, the fourth thing, is curiosity. If we want to be a great leader, we have to be curious. We can't be stuck in our ways. And I'd say, linking back to last week's video, is, a boarding school setting can often create very fixed mindset leadership. It's like, this is the way it is, command and control. Whereas curiosity is about emotional intelligence. And Zena Me, when I interviewed her for the documentary, she said, emotional intelligence is everything in leadership, or something along those lines. It's key. And she also talked about spiritual intelligence. I think curiosity is that. It's like, right, let's try this. Because there's no such thing as a failure. Richard Branson talks about that in his work, is that actually the most successful people are those that have failed the most. That's the third thing, the fourth thing. And the fifth thing is daring. They realized that we've got to dare, we've got to try things out, we've got to make mistakes, we've got to, go, let's try this. Let's, for me, make a documentary. Let's see how it goes. It's to dare to go out and do these things. And that's why I think it's really important, if we have some form of wounding, then often the failure thing, this is something I see a lot with my clients, is they really struggle to make mistakes, or to be seen like they failed, or to think that people don't like them. And therefore they don't dare. So I think it's important for us to keep looking at those wounds and then heal those. So those are from Warren Bennis's book, 5 things to start to create, and the basics of leadership: vision, passion, integrity, curiosity, and daring. So as always, please do offer any reflections. Got a great podcast with a guest on Friday. He was basically in an explosion as a child, burnt 90% of his body. The story is incredible, and just his resilience and how he overcame his trauma. So that will be going live on Friday. So blessings.